Welcome to the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. Unfortunately, it appears that the pop-up chats are not, the window is not working. Devs have been working on the super chats, but I'm going to see if I can get over here to get to the home, see if we, yeah, okay, so what I have to do is I have to go into the Darkstream there and then kind of cheat this way so that I can turn the sound off on it. And now I can see your chats, so that's good. Hang on, I'm going to hide it under my stream window. There we go. And that should do it. Sorry about that. I'm just, we're kind of ad hocing it here. No, it's okay, Skydog. I can see your comments now. Taryn, Sheriff G, Skydog, Doc Love, good evening. Everybody's here. So anyhow, the pop-up chat and the super chats are not functional right at the moment, but they're working on it. We'll have them soon. So good evening. Tonight, as you're probably not going to be at all surprised, we are going to discuss the LA riots and some of the significance of that. And we're going to watch some video from Colonel McGregor, and hang on, plus the shipping cost. So anyhow, we'll get to that in a minute. And then we'll also have a surprise for those of you who are backers of the Sol Sigma project, because I'm going to play the version of the final song of the Only Skull project. I'll play the version that's going to be the main version release for the single, but the backers are going to get the they'll also get the organic version recorded by myself and John Bradley, and then mixed by the same pro engineer who does all the mastering. So and there's more on that, but we'll leave it at that for now. So first of all, let's go ahead and note that Con Inc. has gotten involved. Isn't that great? Isn't this interesting how the same message is popping up from everybody? Matt Walsh, ban all third world immigration, legal or illegal. There should be a moratorium on all immigration from the third world. We've reached our capacity. We cannot be the world's soup kitchen anymore. Charlie Kirk, it's time to ban third world immigration, legal or illegal. We've reached our limit and have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services problem to fix now because of it. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with a ban on all third worlders. Jack Posobiec, it's time to ban third world immigration, legal or illegal. We've reached our limit. We have a huge cultural, he's got this exact same post as Charlie Kirk. Now, what's really interesting is the way this marks a huge shift in the goalposts from Conservative Inc. But it also contains a key giveaway. So it's good. It's a positive thing that they are saying that it's legal immigration is part of the problem. You know, for how long has it been? 20 years, 30 years, conservatives saying, it's not immigration, it's illegal immigration, right? Well, now they're saying, no, it's legal immigration that's part of the problem too. Silent Draco says, what about send them back? Well, yeah, they're not calling for that either, are they? But more importantly, why the focus on the third world? The problem is immigration, right? Why the focus on the third world? Because, of course, they work for people who aren't Americans. They work, as far as we can tell, for the Israeli lobby. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to move the goalposts so they stay relevant. Pillow Vendor is weighing in with some of their older, I don't care if he's brown, yellow, or purple. We want the smartest. No, we don't. We don't want anyone. Why would we want the smartest people to come in and then start pillaging our financial services and subverting our military and attempting to use it to get involved in wars that the American people don't care about? Right? And so what this is, and what this movement of the goalposts by Conservative Inc. is meant to do, is it's meant to draw a dividing line between foreign third world immigrants, legal and illegal, and foreign legal immigrants who are not perceived as third world. So they're trying to protect the ability of AIPAC to continue to rule over Washington, D.C., while dealing with some of the problems that were created by these same people. The Israel lobby, it was responsible for the 1965 Immigration Reform Act. And so, you're not going to you're going to solve a lot of problems if you listen to Conservative Inc., but you're not going to solve the core problem. And of course, that's a third rail that nobody wants to touch or discuss, etc., etc. But it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the reality of the situation. So anyhow, I just thought that was interesting. So now let's go over to the video, and I've already got it queued up. Oops, I got to pause it here. So that's a map of Mexico. I don't have the sound on yet. Just a moment. Where did I have this? I'm going to pause it for a second. Okay. So this is the president of the Mexican Senate, Gerardo Fernandez Noroña, and he is pointing out that the entire southwestern United States used to be Mexico, which is correct. And I need to turn on, let's see, there we are. Need to turn this one on too. And now we can hear him.
No era todo México. Si ustedes pueden ver, quizás un tercio, mínimo una cuarta parte del territorio norteamericano era parte de México hasta 1846.
What do you make of that, Doug? Is that anything we should be concerned about, or is it just some Mexican member of their Senate that's saying stuff that we really don't care about?
Well, I'm sure you've been to Mexico. I have. And if you visit, this is not unusual. There is this long memory in Mexico of how we took advantage of them and grabbed all of this territory as a result of the Mexican War in 1846. In some respects, he's correct. But what people don't understand is that
he's not correct in some respects. He's correct in all respects. There's no question. There's no debating this. All of that land was Mexico. The U.S. fought a war and took it.
In that territory that he was pointed to, which became part of the United States, there were a few 100,000 people, more than half of whom were Indian tribes. And by the way, they invited the so-called Anglos to settle in northern Texas. Initially, this is the Mexican government because they wanted them to take the brunt of the Indian attacks and interventions into northern Mexico, where they would raid and steal things and so forth.
On the land that had been theirs, just to be clear. So it wasn't the Mexicans either, or not originally. So, and keep in mind that, so all of this has happened within the last 200 years. Mexico taking it from the Indians, and then the U.S. taking it from Mexico.
Little did they know it would become Texas, but that's what happened, obviously. I think we should be very concerned in this sense that we have millions and millions and millions of Mexicans and many other Hispanics inside the United States, many of whom don't seem to feel as though they're Americans. And then we have millions.
Because they're not. Whether they feel that they are Americans or not, they're not Americans. They're Mexicans. They have no attachment, historical, blood, intellectually to the American Revolution, none whatsoever. And I say this as someone who has descended from both the American Revolution and the Mexican Revolution.
Do, but the numbers that don't has jumped dramatically over the last few years. And when I say few years, I'm not just talking about the last 4 or 5. I'd go all the way back to the 90s. Sam Huntington wrote a wonderful book, and this is the last book that he wrote. It was called Who Are We? And the book opens in the first chapter with a soccer game in Los Angeles. And the soccer game, this stadium of 20 or 30,000 fills up. And it's between the United States and Mexico. And there are perhaps 500 people there rooting for America, and everybody else in the stadium is cheering for Mexico. And he essentially asked the same question you are. Is this something we should be concerned about? This was in the 1990s, Dan. This is now 2025. No one could miss the numbers of Mexican flags that we saw flying in Los Angeles recently.
Right.
And I'm not insisting that this is the beginning of a major conflict. What I'm suggesting is that we're seeing perhaps the spring rain before the flood. All societies are tested.
I would say that this is, I think it's correct to say that this is the rain before the flood. But this is exactly the kind of thing that I was talking about when I said that I believe that the U.S. was going to break apart as a political entity in the 2033 timeframe. And so I think it's kind of fascinating that here we are 8 years ahead of that, and we're already seeing the initial signs of it. You know, it's not an accident. It was, you know, and again, that's something that I saw in 2004. That's something that Wang Hunin saw, like, I don't remember exactly, but like at least 16 years before that. You know, his book was called America Against America, and that's exactly what he was referring to.
And there are two ways that you can be tested. One is war, and I don't think that's likely for us because we have the advantage of being fairly isolated here in the Western Hemisphere. We can walk out of these so-called vital conflicts anytime we want with no impact on us at all, and very little impact overseas. But we can't survive the financial crisis that looms on the horizon right now very easily. And when people no longer can be subsidized, whether it's food stamps or other special privileges or gifts of cash or opportunities that are government financed and provided, when that goes away and you have millions of people inside your country who are not Americans and make it abundantly clear that they don't want to be Americans, that they're in fact loyal to other entities, then you got a real problem. And I think we've gotten a foretaste of it in LA. It's just the beginning. How we handle these things in the months ahead, particularly as we go from this state of abundance that you and I have known throughout most of our lives to a state of scarcity. You know, what happens when everything you normally buy at the Food Lion or Winn-Dixie is no longer on the shelves? What do you do when you can't afford whatever it is that you want, whether it's a car or gasoline or anything else? I mean, we haven't had to deal with this for a long time. I vaguely remember it in the 1970s, but all of these things had to be taken into account. So I think.
But even in the 70s, and I remember that too. You know, I was young, but I can still remember it. And it was very different because you had a entirely American culture. And so, you know, you had people standing nicely in line to get gas. You had people having potlucks at church. You know, I mean, I never really realized why we had all these potlucks at church until later, and it became clear that with the economic stress of that time, that was how the churches dealt with it. You know, people could be assured of bringing their kids to church, going to the potluck afterwards, and, you know, getting at least one good meal of, you know, completely stuffed, you know. And the food was always super cheap, you know. A lot of Jell-O salads and potato salads and tuna salads and all that sort of thing. And of course, you know, being in Minnesota, pans and pans of bars. But, you know, nobody was really missing stuff. And people were very, very cooperative. And they're not going to be because of the change in the demographics, especially because the change in the demographics has been towards a much more violent, much more criminally inclined group of people. Not all the Hispanics are going to behave like that. Not all the Somalis and Africans are, but a lot more will than 1970s Americans.
I think the question is, who are we, is a very good one and a very important one. And I'm not sure at this stage that we can answer that very easily.
And before we came on that,
I think the obvious answer is, what do you mean by we, Kimosabi? There is no we.
Air here, you were talking to me about some other aspects of these riots in LA that you've been concerned about. The way most of the media is portraying this is that there's lots of, and that's part of it is accurate, that there's a lot of pro-immigrant views in California, and that they didn't like the way that they were handled, and they didn't like that the ICE agents came in looking like they're dressed for war, et cetera, like they're soldiers, not policemen, et cetera. But then you're suggesting that there may be others behind all these protests, more than just people and who, however legitimate, that have different agendas in there. What is your position on that?
Well, the chief of police in Los Angeles tried to make the argument that the vast majority of people involved in this activity, the destruction of private property and threatening people's lives, were in fact what he called professional anarchists. I'm sure some of that is true. And we do have evidence because we saw this in 2020.
It's those darn communist atheists. Those communist atheists are organizing it.
Wealthy so-called oligarchs, you know, people that we always talk about Soros, who has money that goes through many, many different front organizations, but he's not the only one. And
by the way, Doug, just as you're talking here, what we're seeing on the screen there that Gary found this morning is somebody has a lot of money to buy these bionic shield masks that are handed out in mass to just protesters. That doesn't look like some sort of just grew up from the grassroots that suddenly they came out there and someone provided these. It means they had to have them to give them out. So that by itself is kind of concerning.
Oh, no, absolutely. And this is, as I said before, this is the tip of the proverbial iceberg.
I wonder if they borrowed the masks or bought them from the same people that sold them to Patriot Front.
And I would expect these kinds of things to get progressively worse as you go through the summer and into the fall, simply because of the strain that the financial crisis is likely to impose on our society. It's this issue of societal cohesion. So there's no doubt some of that is true, but then there's something else that's concerning, and it's the fact that this chief of police in LA said, I will not cooperate, and no one in my department will cooperate with any federal authorities. Well, the chief of police, I think, is an American citizen. And if you're an American citizen and the president of the United States determines that conditions warrant the use of federal troops, I would think that you would present yourself for not just cooperation, but also to provide advice. But this is the other thing that we need to understand. Back in the early 1960s, we go back to 62, 63, 64, Los Angeles was, as I recollect, 90% white. Today, it's less than 33% white. Now, why is this important? Because there are racial divisions in this country, and those divisions can easily be exploited by the kind of people who purchase those masks. And hatred is easy to mobilize and whip up. And unfortunately, that's the other thing that I fear. The same people that provided those expensive masks, they're going to be providing other things, weapons. Sometimes those are bricks. Sometimes those are stones. I mean, I'm sure you...
The bigger problem, of course, is not the hate or the fact that the foreigners are going to attack the natives, which they will. But the bigger problem is going to be that the U.S. government and the police are going to try to prevent the natives from defending themselves, from winning the war, and from driving the foreigners out. They're probably going to fail in a lot of places, but they will succeed in others. And those places will cease to be a part of the USA.
Saw the clip that was on the television from Los Angeles of this man standing there throwing bricks at passing police cars. Well, my first question is, why didn't one of the police cars stop and then try to arrest this man, or better yet, shoot him? Well, we don't shoot people. Well, I got news for you. The only way to stop looting of stores, which, by the way, we've also seen in Los Angeles again, looting and the destruction of private property, if you don't shoot someone who's doing that sort of thing, it won't stop.
Yeah, and you can just see this is right there. That's the one. That's kind of the money shot right there. That is, it's not a gun, but you could have killed somebody if that brick goes through the driver's window right there. All these are doing it. I mean, you can't use more force than is required by the police really across the country, but you have to use force when it is required. And this just emboldens these. I hesitate to even call them protesters, because these are just violent people who seem to be having a good time about attacking the police than they do about protesting whatever policies that ICE may have been doing. So I think that, but the problem is, though, Doug, this is a really, really chaotic and multifaceted issue that doesn't have any easy answers, because there is so much hatred.
This is two boomers talking to each other. There are easy answers. The easy answers are declare a war, designate the enemy, and wage war on it. But boomers don't like to do that. They don't like to actually accept real wars. They've been fighting fake wars since Vietnam. So, this is one of the weaknesses of the USA. It's a nation that has not yet defended itself.
On many sides of this. How do you solve that?
Well, you don't solve the hatred, but you have to stop the disorder. If you don't compel people to obey the law.
See, again, McGregor's position is better. He's saying, well, you need to stop disorder. But imposing order on a foreign invasion is not sufficient. I think it's fascinating that we're 15 minutes or 10 minutes into their video, and they still haven't said a single word about deportations.
If you don't make it abundantly clear that if they do certain things, they risk being shot and killed.
Doug, I want to ask you something, because it's something that just occurred to me that I remember you told me, I bet it's close to 30 years ago, that one of America's most famous generals, George Patton, came up in the ranks earlier when he was putting down protest in Washington, D.C. against
All right, we can opt out at this point. This is when they just kind of start booming about total nonsense. There's no there's no need to continue to pay attention at this point. Actually, let me turn that off. We're not ready yet for that. The situation is a serious one. It's a real one, and what we're seeing is the final stages of the United States of America as we know it. We don't know if those lands are going to be taken back by the Mexicans. We don't know if some of them will be while others aren't. We don't know where the borders are going to be drawn. But just like with Yugoslavia, just like with Czechoslovakia, the USA is going to break up into its various nations. And it's a little bit more difficult because the US nation has been adulterated in many ways. A lot of Americans don't even know or understand what an American is. A lot of you who consider yourself to be Americans aren't. You're paper US citizens. You have no connection to the historical American nation. America is not an ideal. That whole concept was cooked up by immigrants who wanted to deny Americans their nation. They didn't want to feel like second-class citizens. So what they did was they denied that Americans were a nation, a British Protestant Christian nation. And, and the thing is, it's always obviously been false. How do we know that? Because nobody ever tests you on whether you hold that idea or not. If you reject the idea, your citizenship doesn't magically disappear. You don't cease to become a member of the nation in any way, shape, or form, no matter what you believe, no matter what you think, no matter what ideology or ideas you hold. Nimmeister says correctly, if you can't trace your ancestry to the colonists, you aren't American. That's absolutely correct. I'm only part American. I've got a number of American revolutionary ancestors, but I also have American Indian ancestors, and I have some ancestry going back to the Mexican Revolution. My great-grandfather was he was secretary to Pancho Villa, and came to the U.S. after the assassination of Pancho Villa. So, when so I understand the concept of, mixed identity, as it were. And that does make it difficult for most people. It doesn't make it difficult for me because, having been raised the way that I was, et cetera, it just doesn't bother me in the slightest to go, yeah, I'm only part American. C'est la vie. But for a lot of people, it's very, very difficult to accept. How can I not be American? I was born here. My parents were born. It's always, my grandparents arrived here with nothing and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's why you're not American. Trump isn't. And that's one of the problems. That's one of the reasons why he can't accept what is necessary if he's going to accomplish his objectives, is because of his own identity complications. And that is, of course, why some of those things are created in the first place, right? By the way, the devs want me to point out, super chats are now fully functional in theory. So I'd actually appreciate it if someone would do a small one just so we can test it. Uh, they call me, Cordell says, only half my lineage is English ancestors, and they were loyalists. I don't think I could even say I'm half American. No, you're not. You're a Tory. But, it's fine. We are where we are. The lines are going to be drawn, for the most part, in reasonable places. Thank you, Taryn. He actually did 2. Did you mean to do 2? Or is that an error? Because I'm seeing 2 $1 super chats. So, and also, are you seeing 1 or are you seeing 2? So, did you send 1 or did you send 2? And are you seeing 1 or are you seeing 2? Because I'm seeing 2. And maybe Yordamon can tell us if you sent 1. Okay, so there, Yordamon, there appears to be a. I see. Never mind. Thank you, Taryn. I was thinking they were both. I wasn't reading the names properly. My apologies. And thank you, Old Woman Bear. She sends a super chat of 5 of test. So let's give a hand to the devs for getting it working, and that's good news. Q1882 says old wallet transferred into. That's correct. Let's see. Vox, if you're using the pop-up chat, that's probably still completely borked. I'm not using it. I'm just I've got the whole window open. I've got the sound turned off, and I've got it behind my screen for the streaming software. So it's all good. Yeah, that's something I should mention. If you had any credits in your wallet from the super chats back when they were working before, you still have all those credits. Nobody stole them. You still got them. You can still spend them. So that's good news. And of course, if you're a subscriber on the new system, with the new payment system, you can also use a new payment system to add to your wallet and so forth. So anyhow, I've got something. So we need to pay attention to what's going on this summer. In order to deal with the "What About Me" crowd, I will just say, find yourself a community where you belong. Find yourself a community where you're accepted. In these type of times, your skin, your language, and your religion are your uniform. You do not want to be in a place where you run into conflict with any of those things. So regardless of what you are, of who you are, find a place where you fit in, find a place where you belong. They call me Cordell, sends a $5 super chat, thank you. Owen says the paywall hasn't gone up yet. That is correct. This is still the case. You do have to be logged into your account, but you don't have to have an active subscription yet. The next thing the devs are working on now that super chats are done, the next thing they'll be working on is making sure that the rest of world has a way of subscribing and paying. Only after they have a way to do that will the paywall go back up. But we also will have control over it. It's a more sophisticated paywall now, so it's going to be possible for us to do open streams and just do general invitation, say, hey, this one's open, there's no paywall, etc., etc. So they're just, it's taken a long time, but they're just constantly improving. Speaking of things that have taken a long time but are constantly improving, if you didn't see the stream with Big Bear yesterday, I want to show you this. This is The Cambridge History of the Byzantine Empire, Volume 1. And it is bound, it is stamped, it is cased in. It is very beautiful. It is lacking hubs yet. But most importantly, this was bound at the Castelia bindery here in Switzerland. And the really beautiful thing is they're working on the hubs today, literally. Need some slightly smaller screws, but the important thing is that we are now within days of being fully operational. In fact, if we're doing books without hubs, we could go fully operational right now. And this is, just an early test stamp. It has been attested to me by others who have seen the latest stamps that the stamping is even more clear and more crisp. And you can see that it actually compares very, very favorably to the stamping of the previous works. This is a new innovation for history. We've got we're both for history and library. We're now going to, and we'll do this for Libraria as well. We're going to do an actual stamp on the back for Libraria. We're not sure whether we're planning to do blind stamps, not foiled stamps, for both Cathedra and library, but we'll see how they will look. And history. This was just a mistake. So, listening is easier on some devices thanks to your higher audio compression and peak limiting. On unauthorized in general. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yordamon says, saw the newest Byzantine covers the other day, best quality to bear the Castelia name by a mile. Yeah, so, we're working very hard to not just replicate what the library was already delivering, but to improve significantly upon it. Not just with the materials. I mean, this leather is fantastic. This is a very expensive, very elite Spanish cowhide. The pigskin that is arriving very soon is also excellent and much better than the Italian cowhide we'd been using. So, Etherstar says, congrats. Hey, Etherstar, I have a question for you. When does the new base book sale start? Like, if I wanted to get Death and the Devil into that, how soon do I need to have it up? And because I could get it, I could also just, I don't have to have it on Amazon, I suppose. I could just get it up on the Archive and Comics site, correct? That would be faster if it's like starting tomorrow or next week. I haven't been messing around with Amazon much lately, but if you could let me know about that, that would be appreciated. So, anyhow, but it's exciting stuff. I mean, it's going to be a long slog. Wednesday, June 18th. Okay, perfect. I can get it wrapped up and on Amazon by then. So, but anyhow, it's all these things take time. I mean, Etherstar is waiting for his stuff to get bound, which is going to happen now. But you have to do it right. And sometimes that just takes a lot longer than you ever imagined it's going to take. But the thing is, you just keep banging away. You just stay persistent and stay focused, and eventually you get there. And so I'm confident that the same way that we've been improving Castelia Library consistently, we're going to start seeing some of that same type of improvement with unauthorized as well now. And we have a lot less concern about the whole thing, just having the whole rug pulled out from under us the way we have now, 3 times? So 3 or 4 times. So, anyhow, now for the other extra. And this is the 13th and final song from the Sol Sigma only skull cycle. One thing I'm planning to do that I hadn't announced, but I suggested, but I will announce it now, is that I am going to produce CDs, and they'll be supplied free to all of the 25 and up backers, and we'll also probably they're going to be a very limited quantity. We're going to do like 100 of them is all, and so probably price them at $20, and or maybe 25 just to make it not cheaper than the backers. But I don't know exactly how many songs will fit on the CD. I need to add up there might be a song or two to leave off it. And I've got one or two alternate mixes that I think I might put on the CD instead of the one that was given out with the MP3s. So tonight I will send out, let's just say tomorrow, just to be safe. Tomorrow I will send out this as well as the special analog version that only goes to the backers. And I'll be interested to see what you think. This was a song that the engineer liked so much that he actually wants to re-record it with a more established band. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually end up doing something like that. But it's called Girls Love Guitars, and it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more sort of traditional rock than the rest of the album, but we'll see if you like it. I need to turn the speakers back on, and here we go.
And call me when you get in, and I might show you around. I was
slight mistake there. That was the organic one that goes out to the backers, which, as you can tell, I'm singing on. Not the public release. So where did I put that? That was kind of amusing. Let's see here. It's in the wrong directory there. There we are.
pretty on the
I really need to label my mixes better. That was an older version of the same mix. Okay, this has to be it.
Call me when you get in, and I might show you around. I was only leaving word to see who gets to you first. Well, I guess it could be worse. Heard about the legends, read about the scars. Really makes you think sometimes. Heard about the legends, read about the scars. Turns out the girls love guitars. Gets a little crazy looking down from the stage. And maybe it's just a little hazy when you won't tell me your age. Pretty on the outside, poison on the inside. I don't think there's a cure. Oh, Turns out the girls love guitars. Gets a little crazy looking down from the stage. And maybe it's just a little hazy when I can't tell your age. Honey on the outside, sugar on the inside. Tell me you're not still in school. I was only leaving just to make sure I got there first. Well, I guess it could be worse. Heard about the cougars smoking their cigars. Really makes you think sometimes. Stay away from psychos hanging around the bars. Turns out the girls love guitars. Gets a little crazy looking down from the stage. And maybe it's just a little hazy when I should turn the page. Once we thought that we were rock stars. Turns out the girls just love guitars.
So that was Girls Love Guitars, and the last Soul Sigma original from The Only Skull. So once I get that out, and once we get the physical CD out, then we can move on to, I don't know yet which one I'll do first, but I'm working on the Byronics album, which is a Soul Sigma album, and I think it's really good so far. And then just maybe if there's interest in it, I might do a Vibe Patrol album, but we'll see. That one's a little bit trickier just because there's such a much broader range of different sounds and stuff that I've been doing. It could almost be like three separate bands or brands or whatever you want to call it. But anyhow, hope you enjoyed that. If you're a backer, you'll be getting that and the fully organic one. I guess best way to describe it would be the Booster Patrol version. And since it's John and I, and Club Patrol. Yeah, that actually kind of works. But anyhow, it's as the technology keeps getting better, I think that the music, we're going to plateau at some point, but the fact that Soul Sigma already has like 20,000 some listens on Spotify, and I don't know even what it's got on iTunes, but I think it's more than that. That's been really kind of satisfying to see. Even if it's just a hobby and a little bit of an extra for unauthorized folks, it's a lot of fun to do. And pretty soon, I actually tried a AI generated video. It wasn't anywhere nearly good enough to even think about, but I'm guessing it's not going to be too long before that becomes viable as well. So definitely interesting times, especially if you're not caught up in the middle of Mexican insurgent riots, which fortunately most of us are not. But anyhow, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for all the super chats. I appreciate that. And we'll look forward. We're going to do a weekly meme review later this week. And I'm going to actually throw in a meme of my own that it's an old meme that I updated. And I defy any of you to come up with something that is going to beat it. I defy you. So on that note, have a good evening. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.